Okay. We'll call the meeting to order and we'll have Councillor Slip reading the reconciliation.
In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge our meeting place. The city of Flin Flon Council Chambers is situated on the ancestral lands of the Treaty 5 territory. We'd like to acknowledge that we also work in partnership with First Nations in Treaty 6 and 10 territories and the Métis Nation.
Thank you very much for that. And while you're reading, could you confirm the minutes, please?
Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held May 7th, 2024 be adopted and received.
Seconder, Councillor Richardson. All in favor? Councillor Richardson, you didn't turn your sign, did you? I had to sit and go.
Where's your chart?
I actually had to think. Okay, so we have some resolutions and Councillor,
It's me.
yes, Councillor Dallas Funk, please.
Sorry. Check schedule. Be it resolved that the accounts in the amount of $1,687,092.90 be approved for payment.
Seconder, please. Councillor Slip. Well, that's a big number. All in favor? Okay.
BL 2024-07 mill rate, second reading. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-07 being a bylaw governing estimates and to set the mill rate for 2024 for general purposes, school purposes, and uncontrollable purposes be read a second time and passed on the second reading.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Eagle. And all in favor? There we go. Now we move to Councillor Hanson.
I have BL 2024-07 or 2024-08, the business tax assessment. Second reading, be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-08 being a bylaw of the city of Flin Flon to provide for the making of the business assessment and the levying of business tax in conformity with the Municipal Act, Section 306, be read a second time and passed on the second reading.
Okay, and I'll need a seconder for that. Councillor Richardson again. All in favor? And that one is passed. We're, next one, Councillor Hanson again.
BL 2024-09, the fee in lieu of business tax. Second reading. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-09 being a bylaw to provide for the levying and collection of a fee in lieu of business tax for the year 2024 as required by Section 7 of bylaw number 2024-08 be read a second time and passed on second reading.
And I'll have a seconder. Councillor Eagle. All in favor? Thank you. So those are second readings for those. And we move on to Councillor Eagle.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have three resolutions to read, and each of them are second reading of bylaws. Resolution 21-06, be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-10, being a bylaw of the city of Flin Flon, to provide for raising monies by a special tax to augment the Equipment Replacement Reserve Fund created by bylaw number 2376 be read a second time and passed on second reading.
And I need a seconder. Councillor Slip. All in favor? And that's passed.
And the next second reading of bylaw is resolution 21-07. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-11 being a bylaw of the city of Flin Flon to provide for raising monies by a special tax to augment the general reserve fund created by bylaw number 27/88 be read a second time and passed on second reading.
Seconder, Councillor Hanson. All in favor? That one has second reading complete. And Councillor Eagle, you have one more?
Yes, there's one more. Again, second reading, resolution 21-08. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-06, being a bylaw of the city of Flin Flon, to amend bylaw 5/2007, a bylaw to establish the city of Flin Flon Parks and Recreation Commission, and creating a board of directors, section 17. This is final reading. Be done and finally passed. So this is third reading.
Yes, it was confusing with the line above. That's what, yes.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is third reading, so this is the final reading of this bylaw. We've read it two other times at two different meetings.
Okay. seconder Councillor Hanson, and all in favor? Okay, so that is passed. Now we're on 3.8, I believe, Councillor Richards.
Tax Sales Saskatchewan 21-09, be it resolved that the tax service on behalf of the city of Flin Flon be authorized to proceed under the Tax Enforcement Act to acquire title for the following described land. Lot 4, BLK/PAR 414, Plan CW5336, EXT6-141179474. And Lot 5-BLK/PAR 414-Plan CW5336 EXT7-141179485.
And I need a seconder, Councillor Dallas Funk. And for that tongue twister, all in favor? That's a good one. You did very well.
I have another one.
Good.
Urban and Hometown Green Team Grant Program Agreement 21-10. Be it resolved that the agreement between the City of Flin Flon and the Government of Manitoba for the Urban Hometown Green Team Grant Program be approved, and Mayor and Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents.
Councillor Eagle, seconder, all in favor? And that's done. So we are, Councillor Slip.
Animal control report 21-11. Be it resolved that the animal control report for the month of April 2024 be received and filed.
I need a seconder before you do. Okay, Councillor Richardson, go ahead.
So just to quickly go over, there was our animal control person, by the way, is doing a great job. Residential, there was 28 calls. Dogs captured 4, redeemed 4. That's good news. Found a new home for 3. Cats captured 2, and they were put back in their homes and redeemed, both of them. So Taya Rogers again doing a great job.
Thank you. So did we vote on that?
No.
We have to all in
Okay,
favor.
all in favor? I didn't think we caught that part. Okay. And that is it for our motions. So I move for adjournment.
I'll make that one.
Okay, Councillor Hanson.
Do you want to say something about the fire?
About our fire? Yeah, I think we should. Although I think people have heard me speak before about it, but I want to compliment everybody who works for us and who worked for us without being our employees. There are so many people who showed some great dedication. Gentlemen of the press as well who helped us out along this. Rob, we take you out of bed to start this whole business. So certainly Councillor Slip and I would like to thank you personally, for how you reacted and how you helped us out through this whole thing. And it made a big difference, not just to the residents of Flin Flon, but the residents of Creighton and Danair Beach too, because they weren't getting a whole lot more news than we were. And so we were sitting in a kind of a black hole until we had you people to help us. So it's much appreciated. Our administration was there and working hard all the time, and then trying to make arrangements with everybody else. And the police and the fire people and the emergency people came in, and they did their very best to keep us informed all the way along, keep me informed, keep Mike informed, Mike Funk, and so that we could, react appropriately and make sure that we could pass the messages on to the people as best we could without panicking anybody, but allowing you to know that the situation was extremely serious, not just serious, but extremely serious. We got some really lucky breaks. We came out, relatively unscathed as communities, considering what could have happened had a few other things gone wrong. So we're very, very fortunate, and we just certainly have to appreciate the government of Manitoba for sending people in, the firefighters from Quebec, Ontario, New Brunswick. We've got all this sort of thing going on, and we are very, very fortunate that all that worked. I mean, if we were a day earlier, we'd have had maybe less damage. It's hard to say, but couldn't move much faster than we did, and that was kind of a monster fire that grew faster than anybody who had been in. I'm new to fires, but people who've been working with them all the time were amazed at how fast that was. So we were, as a community, not just Flin Flon, but as a general community and area, we were very fortunate to get away the way we did. Anyway, anything I'm missing here? I don't think so. If there are questions from the press, yes, I'm gonna, no, I was told I gotta pass the mic over.
Boy, okay.
Been over there.
Okay, so I guess the question I have, George, is when you were down at the station, we were talking, about these meetings you're having with the town of Creighton, Denier Beach, and putting a plan together. What kind of plan are we looking at now? I guess, as we go through this, or just for the future? I know you guys were meeting, you said daily, to come up with a plan and putting together kind of,
Well, let me tell you that I'm disappointed because my understanding was that the walls were supposed to stay adorned the way they were after a meeting, and it looked a bit like a war room in here after we finished our sessions, and we had everybody here. We had ourselves, Creighton, Denier Beach, and the PBCN band. We also had the hospital, the health people were here, as well as the school divisions from both provinces. So I'm not sure, am I missing anybody?
RCMP.
RCMP, that's right, we're here too. So then we started going through the exercise to see, for example, it was actually an evacuation exercise because we still weren't sure when we started doing this whether we might have to. But we continued with it for 2 days, and everybody came Thursday afternoon, all afternoon, and no breaks, a long day, and then Friday morning as well. And so what we're going to do is hopefully it'll be a wrap up on Thursday morning here of everyone else, and finding out what we've discovered is, and we had maps on the wall of all 3 communities, everybody put in critical points in their communities, things that might be danger points, things that were things like infrastructure that we had to delineate and show up, so we knew what we absolutely had to protect. So there are some of the things around here that we got to make sure that a fire doesn't get to. Our water supplies,
Right.
Those are big things, our sewer treatment supplies, and then there's some extremely powerful dangers around in terms of propane in big quantities and stuff like that. So all those things got mapped out and listed out here, and so everybody is making plans like that, making plans on evacuation itself. And the interesting thing was that everybody who was in here was all different groups, and they all have emergency plans. But what's never happened is anybody sat down in the same room and put all those emergency plans together. Because we find out that we have, for example, 5 buses in town, and everybody says, well, we'll get the bus. Well, actually, who will get the bus is the big deal, right? And who will get the bus first? And where will we get more buses and all that kind of thing? So all those things, when you take into account who's in charge of emergency vehicles and a lot of these things. So we found out what a lot of our gaping holes were in the plan. So I don't know if that's a description enough for you, but the next session is Thursday morning, and I expect it to be vibrant as well. We're going to have this week, what we're doing is gathering facts. And so, the CAOs and people working in there, there's been a lot of questions, and they should be walking in now with some of the answers to those questions, okay? So I don't expect it to be perfect, but I expect it to be a whole lot better. And if there's a bright side to the fact that we've had the fire and this big emergency, it is that we be prepared, because the danger isn't over. There's still 10 kilometers of bush between the fire and where we are now. That danger is still there. Others are, can happen. So if we know what we're doing as a community, and if we know the challenges, for example, no communications, all those things, now that we know what can go wrong, then we can better plan for how to deal with them. Because if they did go wrong before, there's a good chance they could go wrong again.
Yep.
Is that enough?
No, you gave me a pretty good idea. Basically, it's what to do if the next time the situation arises. You have a plan, you got a plan, and like you said, a lot of people are involved in it. And everybody's gonna have a role to play, and it'll hopefully go as smooth as it can.
Well, one of the biggest roles is immediate communication from all the stakeholders. So the people in this room will all be on a list, and they'll all be within conversation in very short order and in a room together. This is the muster point. You're sitting in the muster point now. If there's an emergency in this community, unless this place is in some kind of danger, this is where it'll happen. This is where people will come in. We will make sure we have total communications here, and we'll work from here, so.
Okay.
We were at double whammy. The fire was one thing, I said this just a few minutes ago, but that morning when we came to your house, we had no communications, and I think you mentioned that EMO people said they had never heard of such a thing where everything went down from landlines to internet. So that has to be looked at too on what we can do, but I mean, they'd never seen anything like it.
I always kept a landline in my house because I thought, well, if I lose my cell, I can use my landline. Not so much.
Not this time. Anyway, any other questions?
Just about this one bylaw, 3.5 here, it says, special tax to augment the equipment replacement reserve fund. Can somebody go into detail specifically what that is?
So what we have is we have reserve funds that are set aside for the purchase of equipment. And every year when we do our financial plan and our budget, we put a certain amount, we say a certain amount of money that comes into the city as revenue will go to that equipment reserve fund. And so in the past, it's been somewhere around $300,000 a year, just off
Any
the top
idea
of
what it's
my
gonna
head.
be this time?
It's a little bit less than that. I think it's maybe 200. I can't remember off the top of my head.
So
sorry.
around 200 then?
Yeah, say that.
You'll know tomorrow.
You'll know tomorrow, that's
Okay,
right.
fair enough. And I just have one other question here about these pieces of these lots here. Can you be more specific as to where those are?
They're in Saskatchewan, so they'd be South Hudson or South Main.
South Hudson area?
South Hudson or South Main.
You don't know for sure, right?
Well, I know one in South Hudson. I
Okay,
don't know where the other one is.
okay, that's it for me, thank you.
To go back into the fire situation here, I know the city obviously has an emergency plan, it gets revised every year, but may not have been having to been examined in such fine detail as it's been over the last couple of weeks. What would you say the city or council has learned over the last couple of weeks about that plan? What needs to be changed, what works, what doesn't? Like, where would you say it all kind of stood?
I think I'll just be the first part of this.
Okay.
The biggest part of this is, when we're gonna be here, we're gonna have our emergency plan. And in the same book, we're gonna have the school divisions, and in the same book, we're gonna have the hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. So if there's anything, my first take from that is, everybody will have a copy of everybody else's emergency plans available to them. First, to know what their job is, and secondly, to be able to cross-reference and see if in some way or another we have made mistakes where we're both expecting to have the same thing happen when we don't have the resources for it. So to me, that's one of the biggest things, but go ahead, please.
No, it's kind of along the same line. I think the biggest learning curve was 2 days in, or 3 days in, we were kind of saying, we need to talk to Creighton and Denair Beach. Because it was a very real reality from the EMO officer saying, hey, you need to plan for this. And then we're saying to them, what happens to us is gonna happen to Creighton and Denair Beach. So for us, every community has an emergency plan. And for the lack of people not knowing, because a lot of people just assumed no community, like nobody had a plan. But Creighton has a plan, Denair has a plan, Flin Flon had a plan, we all have the orange binder. But nobody knew each other's plans, like George said, and nobody had actually ever talked about that. So when we had no communication, and then us reaching out to them saying, hey, we need to have a meeting and discuss this, now that it's better planned, that if our landlines go down, if our internet goes down, if any, then everybody's gonna come here right away to check in, because nobody was really checking in with each other. So that for us as a municipality, considering, I think we're all one community, even though, you know, we're three distinct, we're all one large community with three smaller communities within. So whatever resources we lose, they lose. So it really showed how important what happens to us affects the other communities, and how even the cottage, the unorganized, how much that connection and people being displaced and people assuming that the PAW was their location or where they should go, where in reality, people that live in Cranberry, the majority of them, Flin Flon is their home base. They shop here, they work here. So that unorganization of displacement of the PAW in Flin Flon as the evacuees locations was a big thing as well.
We made sure that Premier Canoe was aware of the reach. Everything we talk about, whether it's this fire or healthcare or whatever, we make sure that those government people, at least we tell them we're one community, really. And it surprises them every once in a while that Saskatchewan is right there. You know?
Did they ever actually take that on board? Did they ever actually take that on board, that we have 3 communities in the
No.
area?
You mean,
expanding provinces?
understand it, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, we made it pretty clear, not just that, it's not kind of anymore, we've been drawing a map for them and saying, we are a community here that runs from Snow Lake, a lot of our people work there, right? Runs from Snow Lake and all the way up to Deschamps. And basically, we've got a big oval, and that's what it is, And that's our trading circle, that's our everything. We have about, I don't know how many different political distinctions between that, because it isn't just how many towns are in between that, but it's also how many indigenous groups are between that, all that sort of thing, but all using the same services, and yet nobody's working together. So we've been pounding that home, and when we spoke with Mr. Canoe, we made that clear to them again. Like we made it clear to them that we will be talking to them about this again, because the decisions that are made about this community, it's not just the fire, the whole health region.
Yeah.
The way that all was going down before was being treated as though there was only 5,000 people here. And yet you're in a community of well over 25,000 people using all those services, but not being taken into account when you're planning all these services. So, we got a police department in Creighton and one right here, 2 miles away, that sort of thing. People have to understand how we're duplicating all those things. It's not just, any one. So yeah, if you asked if we put that across, yes, we did.
And do all the time, every time we meet.
Yeah. But,
We do that every single time. It's 19 months in with this council, and every time that we're in Winnipeg or where we are, even in Saskatchewan, meeting with premiers, meeting with ministers, meeting with whoever, even when they come here, we have been pounding away at that. And in a sense, this is such a disastrous time that we had. It could have been worse, but that has really brought home what we've talked about incessantly all this time. Even I think for us locally in this Oval area, until we really look at ourselves and understand and know that we do deal with the trading area of about 24 to 25,000 people. That's not 5,000 people proper in Flin Flon. That's a lot more people. When a catastrophe occurs or near catastrophe for Flin Flon, it affects everybody else and vice versa. So I can see good things coming out of this. And I do think that this government, I hope, really does understand it. Because when we are looking for backup from this government, from grant money to funding to infrastructure to whatever, that's why. Flin Flon itself is used by over 24,000 people. Yeah, that's my soapbox for it.
And at the end of the day, a fire doesn't care about a border.
That's right.
No, it doesn't. I
That's
just want to
right.
make a plug for Second Harvest. So Second Harvest is an organization that's federal, and their organization is about recovering food. So no food go to waste, no food in landfill. And they go to all locations across Canada and they get all the food that's outdated or food that people are going to throw away from large box grocery stores and everything. When the fire broke out, within 2 days they were calling. And this is how much our organizations or communities are together. Our food bank is actually the only food bank from Swan River up. The Paw doesn't have one, Cranberry doesn't have one. So they come here, Cranberry comes here for us. So they called right away and said, hey, what can we do for you? There's a fire there. So on Friday, Gardewine shipped up from Northwestern Ontario 6 pallets of food that were for our food bank because we had an uptake in clients right away. We didn't take that food. Gardewine today drove that food to Cranberry for our organization to give it to the people that were returning home. With that GoFundMe, they purchased fresh produce and meat and eggs, and then we provided all the dry goods. So all cans, pasta, rice, cereal, and then I called Second Harvest back and said, hey, do you think you could send us 7 more pallets? And they said, absolutely. So our communities together, and as Canoe's team says quite often, all Manitoba for Manitoba. And I very much stressed to Second Harvest that Cranberry is as much a Flin Flon as Flin Flon is a Cranberry. So all that food went there today, and tomorrow, Tiff Anderson and her team that she set up, they did a whole thing in the curling rink. So they're gonna have stations and everybody's gonna come there with their box and then get food so they can have food from after they
That
get
was
home.
13 pallets total?
Yes, yeah. Which is a tremendous amount of money, not only the food, but the shipping alone.
With
That,
no-
Gardewine
Okay,
Pond.
so you said dry goods plus there was a GoFundMe.
Yeah, I'll text you Tiff Anderson's contact because there was her and two other people that started a GoFundMe for the cranberry evacuees.
Okay,
And all of that money they purchased fruit, vegetables, eggs, and meat. And then our food bank with Second Harvest provided all the dry goods for them.
okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the Second Harvest, no questions asked.
No questions asked. They were the
No.
ones that phoned and asked. So 250 homes total. So I just wanted to give a shout out that our community was taken care of by Second Harvest for that. And that's really what it's about.
And that GoFundMe, I think, was over 10K last time I checked.
Yes, yes.
Good.
So another thing I wanted to ask about the city fire response was one of the statements that came out during the fire, I think may have been interpreted differently than was intended. I know that when things were starting to look a little bit bleak later in the week, last week, there was an announcement about trailers and boats, for example, that said that, I think at first it said that they wouldn't be permitted on the way out and then said that they'd be kind of frowned upon, but like anything like that. Where did that decision come from? Was that from the city? Did that come from the province? Like, where did that call come from?
That came from the Department of, what am I talking about?
EMO
The
or?
fire commission,
Fire
EMO, the
commission.
two Winnipeg,
Okay, the two
Robin.
EMO people.
yeah.
And they gave us that advice. They said, because you would probably not have a road going south, and you'd all be on one going west, and there wouldn't be just this 5,000 people, but it would be the people from next door and from the areas joining. They said there are several dangerous pinch points along the way. They suggested that the idea would be best to restrict the use of those in the actual evacuation. So they suggested if people wanted to do that, to do it in advance. Now, that's hard for some people to do, and I recognize it. And we don't have a legal leg to stand on to say you can't pull a trailer on the road. However, if you've seen some of the footage of people, escaping from when it gets really close and dangerous fires and smoking, you've got to get out of there. And having all those big loads, they suggested would be dangerous, so we suggested it would be a bad idea to pull. Later on, we said we can't stop you from pulling them, so you can do what you can do, but then realize, like for example, the one guy said, if something goes wrong with your trailer, you break an axle, you are going to be thrown off the road into the ditch right now, and if you keep going, like that was the scenario. You're talking about a mass exodus, right? We just want people to understand that when that sort of thing happens, it can be very catastrophic if we have several blockages. So their suggestion was to not do this. However, people would probably still do it. You'd probably find somebody who thought they needed to save their boat,
Well, mine would have been in Ruston.
You're gonna do, there's nothing we can do about that, but that was the suggestion given to us, so we put it on the radio because we said, well, if that's what we're being suggested we should do, that's what we'll do. We got some blowback, and I understand it, but I mean, you can take it for whatever it is. It's a free country, you can do what you want.
Did you see the news on the Fort Mac, people escaping up this fire, but the last fire, and the number of trucks with burning campers behind them?
Yeah.
It was, because a camper is a tinderbox, and there's nothing there really, it's tin and not much else, so I don't think I'd want to be pulling a camper. Like I said, I would put my boat in Ross Lake, anchored it out, and hope for the best.
Anyway, that was the suggestion at the time, we're not gonna continue to debate it. People brighter than me can figure out what the right answer is here.
Also wanted to touch base about that meeting you had with the Premier. Obviously, we were able to hang some questions on him while he was here, and then he met with you guys. What was the meeting like? What did you discuss? What did you learn?
I think you probably made it clear already. We talked about a lot of things there. You've already asked him the questions specific to safety and that sort of thing, both of you. So those were covered. But he didn't hang around that long because he had other jobs, other places to go and see. But in general, what was the condition? How are we coping? And his question to us was really, how can I help you? And that's where I said, at that point, the premier actually gave me his personal phone number and said, if you need something, here it is. So Mike Funk and I had his phone number. We did not need to call it, but had we run into a situation we thought was untenable, we could have got a direct access to either him or his office. So that was very nice. So I think we were treated very fairly. It wasn't just a jovial how do you do meeting, and they had to get going. So it didn't last that long, but just business.
Wanted to ask too about the Urban Hometown Green Team Grant Program Agreement. Obviously, haven't given this a big, long look through, but what exactly does this agreement mean for the city and operations?
Well, it means we're going to get $33,700 for summer students.
Okay.
We've had this program for years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. These
Yeah.
kids are cutting the grass.
Yeah. How does this compare to money that cities previously got through the program? More or less?
I think it's pretty close to the same amount of money.
Okay. How many students is the city planning to hire for the summer?
That would be a really good question for Kate because they're all Parks and Rec students.
Okay. Then Kate's getting an email tomorrow morning. Also wanted to know ahead of the budget meeting tomorrow night, obviously, anything that people ought to know going into the budget meeting? Anything in particular about the budget or the city situation that you think people ought to know about beforehand?
I think the really important thing for people to know is that it's here at 7 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then be here. We'll go through the budget, we'll go through the presentation.
And there'll be information available afterwards as well for those who can't make it.
And then once,
Lynn, how long do you think that'll take for you to go through it?
Yeah, it depends how many questions we have afterwards, but I've been at meetings where it's taken us 15 minutes, meetings where it's taken us an hour. So last year I think was longer.
it depends on who shows up. I've been to some of these that nobody showed up.
Yeah.
And we want as many people to show as possible.
Yeah, the very first one I did in 2018, I think there was only one person there other than council. So we've had some really small attending ones, but it's better when there's more people because then there's more questions.
And they get the
So
straight
it's
goods.
Up to an hour out of the meeting.
Yeah.
And they get the straight goods instead of stupid rumors on Facebook.
Also wanted to. I think that's the second or third time I've heard that from somebody on council in the last week. And
What?
as somebody with a deep distrust of Facebook, it brings joy to my blackened heart.
It's a little disheartening when you know that your whole fire team is out there and there's 5 different organizations out there and they're going for 12 hours at a time and these people are risking their lives and then there's good old Facebook.
Well, I mean, like,
It's really hard to read that stuff when you know that other people's wives, husbands are reading that their family is actually there risking their lives and you're on a tangent about maybe a trailer or about maybe the post wasn't on, I'm going on to that better.
well,
Sorry.
to pull that back, and like, not to get anybody angry and
Sorry.
frothing at the mouth about it, because I could do that too.
It's true.
About the way that information was brought out to the public during this, how would you guys feel that was in the moment? Like, how do you feel the communications were with the public when you could do them, obviously? Like,
Yeah.
when the internet's out, not only can you probably not post it, very few people are gonna read it. But how do you feel the crisis communication was in the moment when you were able to share info?
Well, as soon as we got the information, we shared it.
Ask your friend.
We were on the radio steady.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna say this, I said it to Mr. Canoe, and Eric, you do a bang up job, but the mayor and I woke Rob up at about 7:30.
No, it wasn't that early.
It was early.
9:45.
And he said, give me 15 minutes. He got on the radio and stayed there all day till 6 o'clock. And he said, if you need me again, we'll come back and do it. That's the only communications we had at that point. There was CFAR. Now, not many people own radios anymore, but Rob did a bang up job. And then in regards to our posting, I thought it was very good. Might have been 1 or 2 posts that might have been worded a little different, but they were corrected if need be. But those are things, you have a postmortem after these things, like the mayor said, and you figure out what you did right, what you did wrong, and what you could do better.
The other thing too is, right, we're not out there. And Flin Flon is not considered a state of emergency. Sourdough Bay is, Whitefish is, Cranberry is. So we're at the privy for EMO, Red Cross, and the fire commissioner's office to text us or have our fire chief come in every morning or wait till 7 o'clock at night for him to come in and debrief. So it's not like we were on the radio. So we were giving as much information as we possibly could. It was the information we were getting. And then they were on the radio, obviously, and going. But I do appreciate it because people are worried.
Sure.
They don't know what's going on. You're anxious. You're scared for your family. You're scared for your homes. And without information, it makes you more nervous. Information's power. But by all means, we were not keeping any information. We would get the report through either a text message or a phone call, and immediately George would be on the radio or Mike or the other Mike or Thomas was posting. Whatever we were getting, we were automatically posting. But we certainly weren't driving out to the airport and saying, hey, like, could you stop for 10 minutes and, give me the lowdown? We would have just been in the way.
And we had to be very careful. The first thing that the mayor and I and Rob talked about is, I had talked to the fire chief and he had thought that there might have been a little more destruction. And it turned out there wasn't. That was his. But we can't report on that because we don't know. All we can deal with is Flin Flon. We didn't know how many houses, if all of them went or none of them went. So, we couldn't talk about that. And we were very conscious about not talking about that, not putting fear into people who might live out there because we didn't know the truth, the facts. So I think our report, our information was as good as it could be at that time. And a lot of thanks goes to CFAR for those initial times. And we got those reports out as quick as we could.
Who we have not yet thanked though, are those individuals who brought their Starlink
Yeah.
right away. They disconnected their own and brought them in and we needed them here. We needed them for the fire hall. We needed them for the police. We needed them at the airport. These guys didn't have all that stuff. And so within 24 hours, we had communications, amongst each other and that sort of thing. And a lot of that, some of that had to do with equipment we had, but some of that had to do with individuals donating their own stuff for the use. And that was a big deal to this community, for what you were able to know and for your own safety, because the communications that the people who were taking care of you, that they could have communications, that was all because of those people.
Yeah, and those businesses with Starlink, they took their Wi-Fi password out there and said, come on down, download your emails, God bless them too, so. Because there was a number of them.
Yes, it was.
So, Fred, what would you ask to the, on the spot kind of, whatever it is we could do, we did, and I guess no matter what happens, each circumstance will be different, so you learn what you learn, but every time you're gonna have an emergency, you will be flying with the seat of your pants.
Okay, I don't think I have any other questions.
Thanks.